Yes. No, yes. All right. Hey everyone, thank you for downloading and listening to episode 90 of the Dependent Independent podcast. I'm your host, Nick G, and this is a 200-episode podcast about making connections, looking back on moving forward. In these episodes, I am either joined by a co-host or just with me, and I share stories and experiences, and hopefully we can learn a thing or two that'll keep us moving forward. Now, in this episode 90, I am chilling solo, and I'm really excited. I really want to do my best to get this show out as fast as possible. If you are listening to this and you are the first listening to this, you're probably a Patreon subscriber because this show will go up tonight on our Patreon page, both video and audio, so you can check us out. So for my fellow Patreon subscribers, thank you for taking care of me. And if you're listening to this show on the day it posts at 9 a.m. on Thursday or afterwards or forever in our library, because we have so many back shows in this 200-episode journey, which we started back in January of 2015, please feel free. So you can get more or a little bit extra, either early access or exclusive content that I only put on our Patreon page. You can donate as small as $1 at patreon.com/thedependentindependent, and the actually hyperlink is in our show notes, and you can go right there and help us out. I'm trying to create a different type of community on Patreon. Those are real fans that have been with me forever. Not to say that you're not. Please don't take that the wrong way. And if you're new to the show, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you hear the show every time they post, each and every Thursday at 9 a.m. I was doing every other Thursday, but since I'm so excited and I have so much to talk about, I decided I can't stop bringing you content and bringing you in, kind of getting you to join this little roller coaster. Excuse me. Real life. Bringing you on this roller coaster. That way you can connect with me, and you can connect with yourself, and I can connect with me, and all these types of connections that keep us moving forward. So in this episode, I really wanted to talk about something that I cannot get out of my head, is FOMO, fear of missing out. Now, this week, there is a major podcast conference. I'm kind of representing. I'm wearing this shirt. Major podcast conference called Podcast Movement that is in Philadelphia. It's big on the East Coast. It's a national conference. There are a lot of people going, a lot of friends of the show, past co-hosts of the show, people like Clay Groves and Harry Duran, people that I've built these interesting podcasting relationships with. I consider these people friends because we talk more than just listening to each other's shows, and the fact that we've shared experiences on our shows as well on various topics. But this week, because I am unable to pull myself away from work, and I actually have to travel for work, I can't go. I can't go to one of the most exclusive national conferences that's no more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I guess, 25, 30 minutes from my house. It's crazy. I know we have the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, which I'm speaking at in September, and that is on this side of the Delaware River in Jersey. But the fact that the podcast conference is actually right over in Philadelphia, I can't go. It bugs me. And it's weird because in doing this and sharing my life with all of you, I get energized and I get excited when I'm around other people doing the same thing. And I feel like I'm missing a level of momentum that I can't get because I'm not there. I was even invited, my co-host of episode 89, Tom Tate, unbelievable co-host. He did an amazing job on this virtual podcast summit that I'll talk about a little bit later. But Tom Tate, he's with Abe Weber Media. It's an online marketing or email marketing company. Online. Of course it's online. It's an email marketing company. And the fact that he invited me to a special, kind of program that they're doing or a little get-together, and I can't even do that. Because the weirdest thing about this is real life's happening. I'm working, and I got a little bit slightly involved in the community today. I got connected with some folks in the local Rotary Club, which is fun. I didn't know what Rotary is, but a friend of mine told me about it, and I went to their first meeting as a potential member, and I'm anxious to see what I can do with using something like podcasting and social media to build their brand awareness, the community a little bit more involved in the Rotary and what they do. It's pretty awesome. You should definitely check it out. I don't know if it's Rotary.com or whatever it is, but I'm a new member, so you can't hold that against me because I don't quite know all the ins and outs, and I haven't been inducted yet as a member. So I'm missing out, and I'm afraid that I'm not going to gain something. I'm not going to get better. And you know me, if you've been listening to the show, I'm riddled with ambition, and all I want to do is get better at anything that I do. And it kills me when I can't. I remember back when I was a kid. It's weird, it's weird how you behave also when you're left out of things. You gotta kind of make do. So the fact that I'm not there, I have to find other ways to get that stimulation. And as a kid, I remember I was a little different. I mean, you've seen my logo. If you follow the show way back, the actual photograph is some of the thumbnails of our earlier episodes. And that kid doesn't look like someone who is, I don't want to put me down. I mean, that's what I feel like I'm doing. But I was a geek, man. Like I wasn't cool looking. And kids judge. And I remember living in an apartment complex where all the kids got together, and there were a lot more cooler kids than I was. And I'd like to be different. I like to speak my mind and say things that other people wanted to say, ironically. And back then, I was kind of pushed aside. I remember there were times when everybody would be playing inside someone's apartment, and this is weird, it's sad, but I'd be stuck outside sitting on a patio chair because they didn't want to bring me inside. So I spent a lot of time playing games and making up my own games, and played with toys for a really long time. And I guess because I was angry because I was missing out, but I had to make do. I really had to make do. And even though I wasn't invited to the party, I still had to make up for it somewhere. So even though I'm not at this podcast conference, I'm finding myself finding stimulation elsewhere. I had a great conversation tonight about bringing social media into this Rotary Club in town, and I'm anxious to see where that goes. And I'm excited. I'm really, really excited to help them and be part of something maybe a little bit bigger than me, because that's always a good time. So even though there's this fear of missing out, we're always compelled to get online, and we're afraid. I mean, I cut off news for a week. I didn't really care. That's one thing. I wasn't afraid of missing out anything. It's funny when you actually do that, though. When you actually make the conscious effort. Like when I was a kid, no one let me in the apartment to hang out with the kids. I was the weird brother. My sister was in hanging out, but I wasn't the one invited. So that wasn't by choice. But sometimes it's good to actually purposefully miss things. Again, I don't want to miss the podcast conference because I really feel like I'm missing something. One is I made all these connections with these people that are actually coming to town, and I can't meet with them, and that would have been awesome. That would have been so much fun if I was able to do that. But guys, as you're listening, please forgive me. I'm sorry I can't see you. We will get together someday. But I hope you have an amazing time at Podcast Movement. And I'm anxious to see what people, again, I don't want to miss out, so I got to get on social media and figure out what kind of Instagram posts people are posting, and all these types of things that can get me excited, because I think it's like that kid's birthday party. The kid that as you're not. It's similar to the thing, or even as an adult, right? Like there are groups of friends that you're. There's people even in my community here that spend a lot of time together, and they're likable people. Hey, Rebecca, we got to talk Rotary. And by the way, guys, we do this. I record this on Facebook Live. Folks are actually seeing this on Facebook Live, even though we're going to put this exclusively on Patreon and Early Access. The only people that are up right now watching this podcast are going to see it, but immediately when we're done, it'll be taken off. So if you're tuning in, you are privileged on seeing the recording of episode 90 on Facebook Live. So anyway, I was talking about the community and some of the adults that hang out in town. It's weird. I like Megan and I always been kind of homebodies, so we never feel like we're really missing out. But there are times I think where we need to get out. The kids had the last 2 weeks. The kids had Abby had a dance competitions for 2 weeks straight, and Nate made the local all-star team. So he was playing baseball for nearly 2 weeks, and in that whole process, her days were filled, my days were filled, and our nights were filled because Nate was playing night games. And it got crazy. It really, really got crazy. And everything, people are going out, and there's things happening. And again, fear of missing out, all we wanted to do, we didn't want to miss our kids' activities. That's definitely something that we didn't want to miss. But because we made the choice to do that, we had to miss out on other things. We were even at a party. Megan's friend turned 40. Yes, I need to go. And guys, if you're ever in South Jersey, they haven't really made it public, but we have some friends of ours, Dan and Maria, both run this amazing little bar called Shenanigans. You might check them out on Facebook. I think it's just Shenanigans. Blow them up on social media, follow them, and if you're in the neighborhood and their garage doors are open, definitely check out their local drinking hub drinking hole, and you guys can have an amazing time and have some fun. So yes, you're right. So we were so busy doing all this that finally, at the end of the week, we almost missed it, but Megan's friend, my wife, turned 40. And we went to this bar. Horrible weather. Oh, my God, the weather was so bad. It would have been great if we were able to sit outside in Atlantic City to actually enjoy ourselves in the open air, but we couldn't, so we were all inside. And it's funny. This is what really got me thinking when I really thought about the choices you make of choosing what to miss out on. So we're in this environment. I don't know why I gave it such a clinical description as environment, but it was in this bar. And everyone's chatting, and there's tons of people here at the bar that know each other. It's everyone that went to school with my wife and friends of friends and people I've met at my wife's high school reunions. They're probably some of the best parties ever. My wife has amazing friends. There's no doubt about it. They're amazing people. But the weird thing about it is I was with a few other people and chose to not engage anybody. Like I actually chose to miss out. I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I mean, you know me, I'm fairly intimate. I like talking with you on this video and you on Facebook who are checking this out for only this time because this will come right off. And those who decided to listen to the show, I enjoy a level of intimacy. And maybe it's not so much of not being invited to the party, because parties can kind of be whether you're at a bar, or whether you're at a podcast conference, or whether you're simply at a dance competition or a baseball tournament. Yo, what's up, Chris? I got to say hi to Chris. Chris tuned in on Facebook Live. Thanks for tuning in, Chris. Make sure you download and subscribe to the show, man. It's pretty good. But whether or not you're doing all that, sometimes it's, I guess as I get older, it's just easier to choose what I want to miss. So whatever fear I have of missing out on anything kind of dissipates. Because I told you before, I went a whole week, I was listening to the news constantly, and then I chose to actually forget it and get off the news for a whole week. And it was awesome. It was cathartic. It was something I didn't really have to deal with. And I think this is what I heard, and this is what I want to leave you guys with. Even though we go through this life with access to everything, that we don't want to miss anything, so we're constantly pinned to our phones. We're constantly trying to make time to get out of the house, especially with all the hubbub between the kids and the work and everything. And I would have killed to take this week off from work to go to the podcast conference, podcast movement in Philly. And I'm sorry that I'm going to miss my friends and seeing the past co-hosts that are joining or that have joined me on the show that are going to be at the conference. But I was watching Neil Giarte's documentary. Neil Giarte is a podcaster. He does a podcast called All Things Post, which he really talks about the technology that I really like to talk about and work with other people and all the tech and the stuff in the studio. And he had a gentleman on the show or on the documentary named John Lee Dumas. John Lee Dumas is a guy that basically every podcaster envies because you can. This guy made gazillions of dollars podcasting, but tagged it with some stuff. Go check it out. He didn't just do podcasting, but he figured out a way to monetize all this stuff. That what's up, Darren? Darren, who's joining me on Facebook Live, actually was one of the guys I chatted with at the party. Who, again, someone I just decided to have an intimate conversation with rather than trying to be a social butterfly and talking to everybody, because I chose not to. I didn't want to be part of that party. I just wanted to be part of my party. So this guy named John Lee Dumas was not only on our future co-host Neil Giarte's documentary called The Messengers on iTunes. You should definitely check it out. It's called The Podcast Documentary, or The Messengers, a podcast documentary. He was actually supposed to join me for episode 90, but he had a horrible sporting accident. He had an injury playing soccer, and he went down. And unfortunately, he'll be on episode 90. We'll record next week. But this guy, John Lee Dumas, was also interviewed, and I was mentioning before, Tom Tate. Tom Tate, who was our co-host on episode 89, interviewed this guy on a virtual conference, and what he said resonated, man. It was so cool, right? So I'm sitting here, I'm telling you guys about this fear of missing out, and I've kind of come up to the summation that I think I'm getting old enough to a point where I'm choosing what to miss out on. It's way easier to choose what I'm going to miss out on, but he said something that made so much sense to me. He said, when you choose to say yes to something, you're actually making the conscious choice to say no to everything else. And I think in this world of going through your fear of missing out, whether it be getting caught up on Facebook or figuring out what the Joneses are doing, or anything you get into where you're afraid if you don't dive in, you're going to miss something, be like me and choose to focus on the one thing, whether it be having an intimate conversation with somebody at a party, or choosing, you know what, rather than me taking a mess of tons of days off from work to go to a conference, let me maybe pick the brains of the folks that go there and live with it. Because I'm telling you, life may be a little bit easier because I don't want to keep chasing that rabbit or trying to get into that apartment when all the kids are playing and they're not letting me in. I'm going to go. I'm going to try my own thing. I'm going to do my own thing. And then maybe I'm not going to invite them to my party because my party's way better. So hear it from me. Say yes to the cool things. Feel free to say no to the bad things. And don't worry. You're not going to be missing out on anything. Because at the end of the day, whatever we experience is what we want to experience. Nick G, Dependent Independent Podcast. I'm super tired right now. I shouldn't say that to you because you should think I'm a pro. But it's late. And again, this is going to be posted on Patreon for our subscribers. Facebook, I'm sorry, if you're not watching this right now, you'll never see it again. I want to thank everybody who contributed to the comments. And this video and the audio recording will be posted on Patreon. If you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you hit the subscribe button on whatever podcast player you're listening to this to. Share it with a friend. If you've been listening to the show as long as I've been recording it, please tell people. That's the most amazing part. I've done some surveys and asked for feedback, and that's one thing I find out, that most people listen to this show because they either met me or talked to somebody else who liked the show, and that's exactly what this show's about, making true connections and sharing stories and experiences to continue to keep us moving forward. Thank you very much for listening. Check the show notes. You can find the show anywhere. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram and Twitter at Dependent_Nick. I could bore you with all the details, but you can just click on your phone and find it all. Thanks for joining me, and I am out.